K3. I'm Jen.
I'm Karen.
I'm Marisa.
And this is our Astrology Corner. I love it so much. Thank you so much for enjoying it with us. All right, so here's the situation. There's a situation. There's a situation.
Is there a situation in the universe that we need to know about, Jen? Please advise
This is
us.
it. Okay, so we just finished up Touch Your Heart, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And
yeah.
the Twitterverse,
Karen did.
Karen
I
did.
did.
Let's rephrase that.
Yes.
And the Twitterverse is super excited about the coupling between Dong Wook and YOO, right?
Oh, that
Yeah.
was-
And I was like, interesting. Like, we loved them in Goblin, even if you didn't like Goblin, like me, don't judge me. And then we really were excited about Touch Your Heart. So I was curious about their astrology. So I took a look.
Oh,
and then I was
yeah.
like, after I took a look, I was like, oh, interesting. And then what is it about Goblin that resonated with everybody? Like, what was it that worked there?
That made it such a big
Yeah.
show.
So I pretty much
Okay.
pulled Gong Yoo, Dong Wook, YOO, and Kim Goen's charts, and we're going to talk
nice.
briefly about that.
Interesting.
And we're
two
going to look at it.
cancers.
What made the bromance work? What made I'm curious,
bromance.
right?
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
really interested in what Dong Wook and YOO, because I feel that they played two. He didn't so much, but she played two totally different characters.
Yes.
So I want to see what it was about her chart that maybe she was able to pull from for each of those characters. He was similar, but not quite. He was a little darker.
Yeah, no, I would say.
Astrology wills out on that. It works. It
Astrology
plays out. I'm
will
super
reveal.
excited.
Okay.
And then Kim Goen. I mean, again, I was never horribly invested in their relationship in the show, but it's interesting.
I think it was from a story perspective more so than the chemistry between the two of them during the show.
And
That age difference was
exactly.
a little
And I
tricky.
think that's what it was. And if you look at the
word for it.
astrology, that I think is why it didn't work. Which is interesting.
Oh.
So this is what I want. This is what I
Okay.
kind of discovered. So let's start. Let's start with Dong Wook and YOO. Okay. So if you look at our list, which we have, we have. It's interesting because they have kind of the same thing when we talked about Park Min Young and Park Seo Joon, where they had the Moon Sun combination.
Yeah.
They have kind of the same thing. Only it's different signs, but they both have a now. YOO might not have a Scorpio moon. If she doesn't, they don't have it in both directions. But they do have it, depending on what time she was born. They have a Sun Moon conjunction in Scorpio, which is hot.
Oh, that could
Super hot.
explain that.
Which
the
explains, I
chemistry.
think, why we're all like, yes, go again. We love them together. They have an undeniable. If she is a Scorpio moon, which I think she is, they have an undeniable attraction to each other, which is amazing. But regardless of whether or not they have that, they have a Gemini Aquarius combination as
Oh.
well. So they've got it in both directions. They got an air. So they got the communication and the mental stimulation to each other, and they've got an emotional and a deep, dark communication.
that's the full package.
So it is the full package, right? And I think it plays to what they pulled on in each character in each show.
Gotcha.
So I think in Goblin they pulled more on the Scorpio aspects of it, and I think in Touch Your Heart they pulled more on the air and the communication aspects of it.
That totally makes sense
So-
if it's the story.
Yeah, a little bit more light, airy, easy
Yes.
breezy, and like it's
Yes.
all about the intellect and all of that.
Yeah.
Where
His
the
character's really intellectual.
Right.
This lawyer, he's like rattling off law, like blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Yeah.
And so I think that's what they pulled from in Touch Your Heart, where, I mean, that story in Goblin, their backstory, and then them figuring it out in that's all Scorpio right there. That is Scorpio. If Scorpio was going to write its autobiography, that is what that story would be. It is amazing. And then if you look at the rest of their chart, they actually are very similar. Like, a lot of their elements their colors are all the same. It's water, air, and earth, and so they've got a lot of those combinations. They've got a lovely they've got the in earth. They've got a Mars Venus combination. They've got he's got a huge chunk of Libra in him. So I think that's what gives
Does that go
you.
well with the Gemini?
It does because it's air, but Libra's all about balance and equality, and I think that plays. I mean, even his
how he
Reaper,
holds
it's how he
himself.
holds himself.
Yeah.
It's almost like everything is balanced, and if it
Interesting.
gets out of balance, is when he gets super wonky. Even in his storylines, you can kind of see that when even his
interesting. That's true.
storylines start to get like chaotic, his acting gets a little bit more chaotic. So it's really fascinating to me to see that. But it's obvious that these two have an undeniable chemistry. And if the birth times play out correctly, it's a beautiful combination. And again, they're born very similar and very close to each other. So a lot of their outer planets, which move slowly, are in the same sign. So there's not a lot. There's very similar there, so that doesn't really count. But if you do look, they do have some of the Saturn combinations, which gives it a binding to them. So I think that's why we as a fandom like them so much, because there's something solid and committed about the two of them together that we find so enjoyable.
Interesting.
So I'm really fascinated by that. So then if you look at what I found to be, now mind you, I love these two in Goblin. Them and then the Bromance and Goblin were my two favorite parts.
Yes.
So then you look at Gong Yu's chart compared to Dong Wook's chart. They're both water sign suns, so they're both super emotional, which is what they were, right?
That's true.
It was like, I'm so emotional, but I'm more emotional. So that's so hilarious.
My life
right
is more
there.
tragic. No, mine is.
Yeah, I mean, it was hilarious.
Which I can't remember.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and it just so much bears out, right? And then Gong Yu is a Capricorn sun. I'm sorry, Capricorn Moon.
What does that
so
mean?
He's got that Capricorn Moon means, and I think this is what fascinates me about Gong Yu. He can go from super serious and sexy and dynamic to like the biggest man-child on the planet in like 0.2 seconds. And I cannot for the life of me
He pouts
figure-
like nobody's
he
business.
does.
Like,
I
especially
can't-
with that face, he's just like, and you're like, oh.
And so I
Unless it
think
annoys
it
you.
really does. I think it really does play into his rising sign, which because we don't have his birth time is what that is. So my thought, because he does have some Leo, and Leo does kind of have that youthful young child thing about its personality in there. He does got a dash of it. So I think if he's a Leo rising, I think that really like makes that pivot super easy for him, because he can go from
Wow.
being the Capricorn like CEO of life. And I'm emotionally stable only when everything is in order. And I have, he if you really look at his private life, quote unquote, his actual Gong Yu life, it's locked down.
yes.
You don't learn a lot about him except what he wants you to learn. That's very Capricorn. So he's got that. So I kind of look at how that all, he's got a Gemini, his Mars is in Gemini, which plays into all of the air in Dong Wook. It's not an exact match, but it's kind of a sign match. So he's in Gemini, and Dong Wook has Aquarius and Libra, so he doesn't have Gemini. So again, even with Yuan in, that Gemini gives him a grand trine. So with those two people, it's kind of a complete package for him, because they complete him, for lack of a better description, in that category. So that's why I think that resonated so much, because that character, I think, even when we watched Goblin, correct me if I'm wrong, we loved the Goblin, but we were fighting for the
Grim
Reaper,
Reaper.
right?
Yeah.
Like the Reaper character was like a national treasure, and we were all dedicated to him. And I think it's because we would watch him with the other
And his
two,
hats.
Yes.
and it was that their Gemini would kind of give him his full package, and it was, and so I think there's a part of that
Interesting.
plays
So
out there.
interesting.
So I love it with them. And here's the thing, though. This is why I think the Bromance worked. I mean, there's all sorts of lovely little nuggets in there that make it work. But here's the big thing. Gong Yu's North Node, which we have discussed, is what you are working towards, or why you're here in this life, what you're here
Your life purpose.
Your life purpose, right? His is at 9 Virgo. Dong Wook's Mars, which is how he takes action and how he kind of lives his life, is an exact conjunction at 9 Virgo.
Oh.
So there is a karmic connection to them that you can't manufacture.
Gotcha.
And so I think that alone, that connection alone, is why that Bromance was so. We still talk about it today, and it's been years. Like there really has not been a Bromance to match that one, I think, since.
No.
It's hard to,
Right?
not even the Descendants of the Sun, which is a
No,
pretty strong
I mean,
one.
it was a good one, but it wasn't this.
It wasn't
and
that.
I think it's that connection that is what makes it so juicy and delicious. and so then if we just talk very briefly about, I mean, I apologize. Kim Go-eun is an amazing actress, and I love her so much. But I had such a problem with the age gap with them in the story that I had a
For me,
hard
it
time
was
with the relationship.
Even if one could forgive the age gap, just to keep that character at that age was annoying, because you saw her at an older age.
But
and
she was a young
19-year-old.
19. She was,
She wasn't a mature.
No.
And she's got
Worldly.
her Mars and her Venus are conjunct in Leo, which again is that playful, childlike energy, which I think lends to it.
She's got a lot of Leo.
Yeah, she's got a ton of Leo. She's got a ton of Leo in her chart, and she's got a bunch. She's also another one that's right there on that cusp for whether she's a Pisces moon or an Aquarius moon. I feel like she's an Aquarius moon because she does have a bit of that rebel, outside the box, not quite status quo about her. So that kind of makes me feel like she's an Aquarius moon. But she's got so much Cancer, so that's why her and Gong Yoo actually work. That's why when she got older, we were like, "That's the story.
That's where we're going to see those two together."
That's what we wanted to see. Because it was so young. They were both playing to their younger versions of the Leo, which is not. It's man-child. It's woman. It's girl stuff. We didn't want to see that. That's why when you age them up and they're able to step into the older version.
You may have, but we didn't.
This is all about me. But when they stepped up into the adult versions of what these signs can represent, that's when it got juicy and hot, and it was, it was what we want. I wanted. And so I really do. I feel like that's where that fell in. And again, she's got a bunch of Capricorn in her
Capricorn.
So she's got a ton of that in her slower moving planets, and so that all matches up to his moon. So emotionally, they had the gravitas there for what we saw in those 1.5 episodes they gave us. And so that's why when the scene when she died and he ends up in the tea house, and it was just, I didn't even, honestly, I didn't even care about this couple at that point, and even I was sobbing. It was so ridiculously overwrought. Because at that point they were able to play into that gravitas energy that they have, and they didn't have to baby it down.
Right.
Or manufacture it.
This is kind of how these are the things that I see. So yeah, but as far as the casting one, I can see why they cast everybody this way and why it works so well and why it was beautiful. I just, again, as my complaint from day one, I just wish they would have aged her up sooner. And then, are you kidding? This one would have been on rewatch, repeat. It'd be fantastic. Anyway, there's our astrology corner, Goblin style. I can't get away from this show. It's hilarious. For someone who just didn't really enjoy it that much, I cannot get away from it. I'm talking all the time.
Always there for you.
Always. Anyway, thank you so much. We're the K3. I'm Jen.
I'm Karen.
I'm Marisa. Be sure to find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and let us know what you think of our astrology corner.
And if you have any questions or thoughts, I'd love to talk about it.
And subscribe to us here on YouTube. Leave a comment below with a question, a suggestion, your thoughts about the stars and your stars. You're welcome. Come join our K-drama coffee clutch. We'll see you soon.